Abhishek. How are you?
Hi Swapnil, I'm good, thanks. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing good too. So I think we can start with our basic introduction where I can introduce myself and then you can follow. And after that, we can begin with some of the technology related questions. We can do some sequels and some PySpark and some whatever technology you are comfortable with. We will do some questions on that, and
Okay,
then we can see how it goes. Okay.
yeah, sure.
So yeah, I am Swapnil and I have a total 11 years of experience. I am currently working as a data engineer consultant for one of the bigger top banks of Canada right now. And my roles and responsibility includes guiding the team and designing the solutions for the various use cases. And most of the time, I have worked on the data migration projects, which involved migration of data from on-prem to on-cloud. And I have worked on with Azure Cloud and AWS Cloud primarily in my career. And I like dealt with different kind of scenarios, and I have a good understanding about the different parts and flows of the project. So yeah, that was me all over in the data engineering domain. And I would like to know more about you, about your experience with the data engineering field. And you can describe about your project and the flow, whatever you like comfortable with. So yeah,
Yeah, so
over to you.
I have around 4.5 years of experience in IT, out of which 2+ years would be into data engineering. So initially, I worked at Infosys, and there I got introduced into data engineering domain. And from there on, I moved to Kotak, and now currently I'm working with Tiger Analytics.
Okay.
Now, coming to my work, what I have done, mostly in Kotak, I have worked on, I would say, streaming use cases as well as batch use cases. Uh, and the coding language was mostly PySpark, and the cloud technology was AWS. And
Mhm.
coming to the kind of work I usually do is, yeah, mostly it would be streaming use cases in which our the source would be Kafka, and as a consumer through PySpark, we would do all the business transformations and all, and at real time we would send SMS to the customers by hitting the Gupshup API. And coming to batch use cases also, we have done, I mean, I have done a few batch use cases, and that too was in Glue, I would say. And the real time use cases were in Amazon EMR, AWS EMR. And the services that I have used is, yeah, for storage it was S3, and EMR, Glue, Athena, and Event Bridge, CloudWatch, Redshift, a little bit I have used. Yeah,
Mhm.
so these are the services I've used.
Okay. So that sounds interesting. Like the overall project experience looks nice. And okay, so can you tell me about one of the use case which you like the most in your experience?
Okay, so I would say that my first use case was the most interesting one because it was a great learning experience. So here, what was the use case was like, whatever transactions the customer does on a real-time basis, be it credit card transactions or debit card transactions at any merchant. What used to happen was the data was getting ingested into Kafka on a real-time basis. So we, as a developer, what we used to do was we used to fetch those data through PySpark, and we used to do all the business transformation that was required. Let's say the customer did a transaction on Amazon and Flipkart. So corresponding, we had a tie-up with Mintra. So since Mintra, Amazon, Flipkart, they all come into the same merchant category, so we would send a corresponding uh, SMS to the customer based on Mintra's offer. So Mintra's offer we would send. So this was the use case. So after doing all the business transformation, we used to write it to Kafka downstream, as well as we used to hit the Gupshup API for all the eligible customers. This was the end-to-end project that we had done. And at the same time, after writing to Kafka downstream, we used to write into relational database as well. Suppose, let's say, on the real time basis we are sending the SMS the customer sending the customers the SMS, but it might happen that the customer might have missed the SMS.
Mhm.
So for future campaigns, for batch campaigns, the data was being again stored into relational tables. So here also just to stress on a point that certain edge cases also we had to handle. Like sometimes writing to the relational table, it might happen that the data or the service got failed. The process got failed, so we had to take care that we are not writing the same customers again and again, because unique constraint violation would take place, so we are handling that part as well. So yeah, this was one of the use case that was interesting to me.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I understand that's kind of a notification to the customer,
Yes.
and which you have worked on, and for that you have used Gupshup and Kafka for real time and such processing.
Yes.
Okay. So how did you avoid duplicates in the relational database? Suppose same transactions are did not process, and in the batch also you are trying to push the data. So how did you avoid that?
Okay. Actually, what was happening is when we were writing into, let's say, relational table, when we were writing into a relational table, we had a unique ID called request ID, and that request ID was prefixed with REQ, and it had a monotonically increasing ID. So we used to insert it into a relational table. Now, when the suppose let's say the current batch has failed, now the new batch that is there, let's say for every batch we used to get around 400 records or something, uh, 400 to 700 records like that. So what we used to do was we used to pull those, we used to do a select query from that relational table where the request ID was equal to, or the request ID contained these 700 records. Okay, let's say we get those records, that means these records are already present in the relational table as well as in the current batch. So we used to do a left anti to remove those records, and the rest of the record we used to push it to the relational table.
Nice. Okay. Now, like based upon this, I am thinking of a scenario. Suppose there is table A and there is table B, and there are some columns, like suppose column 1, 2, and 3. And the problem in this data set is that table A and table B is the exact replica. Suppose we are trying to migrate the data, or we are just kind of doing a backup. Okay.
Okay.
Now, in my table A, which is my main table, uh, suppose there is no primary key. These all are non-primary keys. And you want to save this data in the table B. And there is record 1, 2, and 3. And there is the fourth record, which is coming. So you don't want to save the fourth record in the table B because it is the same as the table 1, table A, column 1, or row 1, basically.
Okay.
So how can you like avoid the duplicate data rewriting in the table B without primary key? Can you think of a way to do it?
Without primary key, let's say, do you want me to completely, so okay, see, primary key basically we say, one of the column is unique as well as not null is basically primary key. So can I consider a composite key, like if I consider all those three columns, then it will be considered as a unique record. So
Yes, you can do that.
yeah, so if I do that, then uh, maybe instead of checking only one column, I would do a left anti on all those three columns to check if it exists. So if it exists, then I won't write, else I will write it.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's add up a scenario in this, and you have a flexibility to add, create a primary key in the table B while you are inserting. So, is there a way you can think of where you can match that there is no same data getting repeated also, and you generate a primary key as well?
Sure. Let's say, uh, since I have worked in banking domain, let's say we have two columns. Let's say customer number as well as the account number as well as the pin code. Let's say we have this three column. So what I can do is maybe I can create a fourth column that will be a primary key, but it will be some kind of concatenation of this column. Let's say not the entire concatenation, but we can say first four of the CRN, last four digit of the account number, and the pin code. So I can create this, and that will
Perfect.
act as a primary key.
And what you can do to validate
Validate, I mean,
that the
can
data is same or not? Like suppose row one and row four you had to match. How you can validate that the data is same or not after doing the concatenation?
okay, okay. Uh, okay, let's say for all those three records which are already there in table B, so the fourth column is already there. Now,
Mhm.
for the fourth record that I get from table A, so before writing it into B, what I will do is I will do the transformation or the concatenation on the fly itself. I mean, we say ELT. So before loading, I will do the transformation. I will perform the ETL. So I will extract the data. I will do the transformation, and after that, I will check whether this concatenated data from A is equal to the data in the B or not. And if it is equal, then I will not load. Else I will load it.
Yeah, maybe I'll just try to add like, have you thought about hashing and comparing? You can do that, right?
Hashing and comparing.
You can concatenate the columns and generate a hash record value of it. And then when you are trying to insert again, you can, compare the hash values of the concatenated. And this will make sure that the data is not repeated or, kind of not duplicate or avoid, or you can do any kind of checks based on that, right?
Yes, I mean hashing also we can do, but I did not I mean choose that approach because see hashing will not always guarantee that hashing is basically passing few values into a function to generate a unique value, right? I mean it is kind of that. So it might happen that a few combinations of values may generate same value when we do hashing, so it might coincide. So uh, it might happen that for few values the data output for the hashing will be same. So I was thinking if that can happen, so that's why I was avoiding.
Okay, perfect. No worries. Okay. I think we had a good discussion on the project related. So let's do some SQL queries
Yes,
so that we can proceed further. I'll share my screen with you.
sure.
Okay. Okay. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Let's say this is the employee table
Okay.
where there is employee name, salary is there, there is some manager associated with each employee, and they are part of a department. Okay.
Got it.
So can you write a SQL query that will give me the maximum salary in the department? You
Okay.
can start with explaining your approach, and
Yeah,
then
sure.
if you want, you can write.
Okay. Since we just want max salary in department, what I was thinking is, what we can do is maybe we can group by the department,
Mm-hmm.
and again we can only select department id and the max of salary, that will be aggregated one aggregation max of salary from this table, and it will be grouped by department id. So we will get the department no okay, okay, employee with max salary in the department. I'm sorry, I just misread it. So now if it is employee with max salary in the department, so basically for every department you want is employee with maximum salary, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Sorry. So for this, what we can do is maybe we can apply a window function
Mm-hmm.
in which we will select, let's say, uh, employee, and
Okay.
yeah, we will select the employee and the department, the salary as well, and we will apply, let's say, row number. Row
Mm-hmm.
number we can apply since the maximum is required row number, and we'll partition by uh, department. We'll partition by department, and the order will be salary descending. So
Okay.
that will be the first city, and
Mm-hmm.
we will do a select from this city as where row number is equal to 1. So since it will be partitioned by department and salary will be descending, so the first value will always be the highest salary for that department.
Okay. Okay, that's nice. Okay, let's say there is, you know, since you mentioned you will use employee name, what if there is another row with the same employee name, John, suppose?
Okay.
There. Mhm. How will your query vary?
Uh, okay. I mentioned row number, right? So if there is another employee called John, so
Mhm.
the query that I mentioned, I think that will not have any impact, but uh, there will be issue when the salary will be same. Let's say for one of the department, the highest salary is, I would say there are two-person with the same highest salary, then there
Mhm.
might be an issue. So in that case, I will apply maybe rank function, not row number. So that will not create any issue. And
Rank function.
yeah,
Okay.
rank function I will apply, and having same name will not create any issue because anyway I'm partitioning by department. So yeah.
Okay. So when you will apply rank, what will be the rank? Will it not skip?
uh, it will skip, but anyway we require the highest salary, right? Anyway one will come, so we don't matter if one is repeating and the next value is 3. We don't care, right? Because anyway we require one. So
So I think you are also getting the same feature with the row number, right?
but if we apply row number and if the salary is same for two employees, then it will be 1 2, right? Because
Yeah.
anyway we are, yeah. So
Yeah. So I think you are able to handle this, right?
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now, let's say second question. This is little interesting. That suppose I'll just put it up. How will you go about finding the employee who earns more than the manager? Now,
Okay.
I'll give you the example. Let's say employee John, his manager is employee with employee ID 4. So that is Sam. But in this case, you see John is earning only 1,000 and Sam is earning 3,000. So this does not satisfy this criteria because the manager is earning more than the employee.
Got it.
But let's say Pam. So Pam is salary is 5,000, but her manager is employee with ID 2. That is Bill. But if you
Okay.
see the Bill salary is only 4,000. So in
Okay.
this scenario, Pam is earning more than her manager, Bill.
Yes.
So how will you go about doing it? You
Yes.
can, like, if you want to make the data frames or this here, you can work on it. And I just need as an output, I want to know employee name Pam, that this is the
Okay.
employee that earns more than the manager. Take your time and
Yeah.
try to do this.
So anyway, I mean we have to perform self join on this, and we will select maybe uh, employee ID and
Mhm.
salary
Okay.
and manager from employee table, and that we will alias as maybe E1, that table, and we will
Mhm.
inner join with same employee table, and we will alias it as E2, but our joining condition will be uh, E1 dot uh, first tables manager with I can say second table employee, so
Okay.
that we will do a E1 dot manager is equal to E2 dot ID.
Mhm.
So basically we will get for every employee at the side we will get who is the manager, because
Okay.
eventually 4 will be for the first row, we can say 4 beside 4 the manager we will get maybe 4 is what, Sam, we will get Sam. So once
Mhm.
this joining is done, um, what we can do, yeah, there's this null I can see. We can also apply a filter on this null where manager is not null. That filter also we can apply so that who the employee who doesn't have a manager will get filtered out. uh, that is one case. After this joining has been done, what we can do is where even the question is employee earns more than the manager. Yeah. So we consider the first table as the employee, second table as the manager, right? So the where condition will be E1 dot salary is greater than E2 dot salary.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we will apply self join on the manager ID is equal to employee ID. Um, uh, okay, you are noting it down.
So basically, you would like to have something like this, where salary of employee is there
Yes,
and salary of manager is there, right?
correct, correct,
And in this salary of employee, you will get 5,000, and in this scenario, you will get 4,000.
4,000.
Similarly, you will have for others. And in this scenario, suppose 4,000, and here you're getting 1,000,
Correct.
right? You got this.
Yes.
Then what you will do to find out the which salary, like this record, you will do
Yeah.
what column you can
So
do.
yeah. So this employee VC that will belong to the first table E1, manager VC that will belong to the second table E2. Then
Mhm.
salary employee will belong to E1, and salary
Yeah.
manager will belong to E2. So the where condition will be E1 dot salary employee is greater than E2 dot salary manager. So if
Good.
we apply that condition,
Perfect. So yeah, that will basically give you the employee whose salary is more than the manager.
yeah.
Nice. Well, okay. So you mentioned you will be using like basically window function and all these, right? So you know about aggregate functions?
Aggregate, you mean sum and all those things? Sum,
Yeah.
average. Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
mentioned some.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Some max, right?
Max, yes,
Okay. Do you know what is union?
yes, I know.
Okay. So what is the difference between union and union all?
Okay, union basically whenever we join two databases or I mean say tables. So
Mhm.
union, what it will do is it will try to after joining the two tables or appending the two tables, it will try to remove the duplicates. That is what
Mhm.
union does. But in union all, it will not remove the duplicates. Basically, it will join as it is. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, that's the
Okay.
difference. Basically.
That is right. Okay, let's try this question. So basically, in this question, you see there is transaction date, and then there is profit,
Okay.
right? So what I want to know as a business is like, what is my everyday profit, which I can see like 10, 20 paid. But suppose on the second day, I want to know how much profit I have earned.
Okay.
So suppose first day my profit is 20, but second day overall profit is 30. Now it is 35, and
Mhm.
now it is 50. So how you can basically give this as an output? Suppose you are working as a data analyst or engineer, and this type of scenario comes to you. How will you handle this? Like,
Okay, I mean, I have the concept in my mind, but yeah, syntax wise, I might it might be here and there. So basically, this thing called uh, I mean, I will apply obviously a sum,
mm-hmm.
and uh, there's this function called rows between. So we can apply this rows between current row and preceding, I think unbounded preceding or something it is called. So
Okay.
if we apply that function, so then it will provide us sum. And since this over this partitioning, not partitioning, basically if we inside this over, if we write that rows between current row and unbounded preceding, it will do the running sum. So yeah.
Okay, so basically you are trying to create a kind of window
Yes.
on which you are applying some function.
Correct.
So depending upon the window size, what it is doing, it is calculating the sum. So like for the
Yes.
first row, the window is only one row, so it is
Yes.
giving me the 10. And
10.
in the second time it is 2, so it will give me 30,
30.
right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, perfect. Now there is a challenge, right? Now the stakeholder is saying that I want to know whether it is increase slash decrease. Like what it wants to know, that compared to my previous day, So this is no change. And here my profit is increase. And here the profit is decrease. And similarly, here the increase. So suppose this is like a weekday schedule for the store. And what it wants to observe is which days my profit is increasing compared to my previous day. So
Okay.
what concepts you can use to get this output?
Okay. Mm, maybe let me think on that. What we can do is, if
Hmm.
it is the first row, then basically it will have nothing. So, hmm. So what I can do is, instead of like the approach that I took for the previous question, here what I will do is, maybe I will try to do a difference. But how do I do the difference? Basically, what I wanted to do was difference between the current row and uh, preceding row one. I mean, there's this part I'm just forgetting, the previous row. If I do a
Right?
difference, so for the first value I will not get any change, but for the second value I will get 10. For the third value I will get minus 15.
Mm-hmm.
So this change column I will get, and after that what I can do is, I will apply case on the newly created table, that case when this increase or decrease is greater than positive. So we will write it as increase, and if it is negative, then decrease, and if it is no change or zero,
Mm-hmm.
basically, then we will write it
Yeah.
as no change.
Perfect. Like your approach is perfectly fine. But can you think of a built-in function that you can use to get this solution?
Built-in function. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm not
Yeah.
on the top
Yeah,
of
no
my.
worries. I
Yeah.
think I'll just give you a hint.
Yes.
Basically, the previous solution that you told, basically the rows between, that built-in function is basically built on top of that approach,
Okay.
where the window size, what you do, you make it negative. So basically, the built-in function is lead or lag. In the
Yes.
lag,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. So in the lag, basically, what you can do is you can look at the previous row
Yes.
and determine, like compare directly that, okay. And you are right that we will use case statement, we can use, or we can use if statement, and we can compare with the previous row. So suppose we are here in this row.
Yeah.
So we will compare with the lag, and we will see that the previous is 10. So we can write a condition that if it is less, the lag is less, the lag profit is less than the current, like suppose something like this, lag of profit is less than the current, then it will be uh, increase, or else it is decrease. Yeah,
Good.
right.
Okay. Yes.
Perfect. So I think, yeah, we're very good. Like you were able to demonstrate that you were able to build solution in both the cases. So nice. I'll stop sharing my screen and we can discuss further on the other technology stacks like uh, Spark maybe. So what do you know about Spark?
Uh, I mean, yeah. So it's a parallel processing framework that is an improvement on Hadoop MapReduce. So
Mhm.
basically, it does in-memory computation, and
Mhm.
yeah, that is what I can think of. And if you want to elaborate me on the architecture, that also I can do.
Okay. Have you worked on Spark optimizations?
Yeah, somewhat I have worked. So
Can
yeah.
you give me one or two examples how you did the optimized it?
Yeah. So in one of the use cases, basically what was happening is our uh, Kafka, the processing time that we had taken was 40 seconds. I'm just building the background. So it was 40 seconds, but and every 40 second it used to fetch the micro batch from Kafka. But the processing time that we were doing, it was taking more than 40 seconds. So this consumer lag thing was coming up. So
Mhm.
to avoid that, we had to do some kind of optimization so that the processing comes between less than 40 seconds. So for that, I noticed that one of the data frame was getting created in the very initial stage, but it was being used repeatedly in the below steps as well. So what I did was basically, instead of recomputing that again and again by going through the DAG, so maybe I persisted it. So that was one of the thing in which, once I persisted it as soon as it was created, so it did not have to compute that again and again, since it was a huge big data set. That was one of the case. And obviously, since we are using Spark greater than 3.2, so AQ is always enabled, so that takes care of the things. As well as when joining, yeah, and that is one of the things. While joining, if one of the table is of lesser size, let's say uh, less than 10 MB, it is usually mentioned that the broadcast auto, I mean the threshold is 10 MB. If it is lesser than 10 MB, instead of the by default, what the Spark does is I think sort merge join. So instead of that, we can provide a hint to do a broadcast join, in which it
Mhm.
will broadcast the smaller table into all the executors. So it will maybe help to do the join faster. That is one of the things. And if the table size is little bit greater, yeah, we can change that variable as well, the threshold variable for broadcast, that we can do. Another thing is there's this thing called salting. So let's say if the data is skewed on any one of
Mhm.
the column, uh, so instead of doing a partitioning on that column, what we can do is we can introduce a new column with random values, and we can use the combination of the primary key or the initial key and this random column, and do a partitioning on that, so that the data get evenly distributed. So that is also one of the thing we can do. And yeah, again, to avoid shuffling in joins, one more thing is, um let's say there's this table that has been frequently used in a join, and that is a
Mhm.
big table, so we can't broadcast it. So what we can do is we can bucket that table. We
Okay.
can do a bucket that table, and the bucketing will be done on that column on which the join has to be performed. So if we do a bucketing of the tables on that column, so when we perform a join, the shuffle part will not come into play. So that can be a performance improvement.
So what
Uh,
is the difference between partitioning and bucketing?
okay, let's partitioning and bucketing. I would say, mm, okay. So partitioning is basically physically divide the data that is being stored in
Mhm.
our data lake or any part. We physically divide the data, and it is being stored in folders. Basically, we see it as folders, and
Mhm.
whenever we do a filter on that, so basically we apply a filter condition on those column on which it has been partitioned. Let's say we have a data, and there's a column called current date, and
Mhm.
if we do a partitioning and store that data based on the current date column, basically in S3 we will see that there's a folder created inside that bucket called current date, and inside that the data is stored. So we can see a physical representation in partitioning. But in bucketing, what happens is it's basically a logical representation in which the data is stored based on, I would say, hashing or some function in which the data is logically stored. And whenever we do a query or something, so again it applies that function, and when it hits the hash value, it pulls the data from that bucket. Basically, we predefine how many buckets the data has to be stored, and but in
Okay.
partitioning we can't do that part. We
Okay.
just, yeah.
Uh, you mentioned you are using AWS services.
Yes.
So tell me, like, how will you use AWS S3, Lambda, and Glue in a data engineering project? Like, how did you use it, all three?
Okay. Okay.
Like, for what
Yeah.
purpose you use them? Yeah.
Yeah. So there was one of the use case where we used is the data was stored in S3.
Mm.
I mean, the source data was stored in S3. Now we had written a glue job in which it has to do the processing for both daily as well as weekly job. And
Mhm.
initially, what was happening is they had created two glue jobs for that. But as a part of optimization, it came to me, not optimization. Basically, they wanted to change this thing. So what we did was we created one glue job in which it was mentioned as the same glue job will perform the daily as well as weekly job, but a parameter has to be passed that now is the time to execute the daily job, or now is the time to execute the weekly job. So
Mhm.
that was the glue part, and the S3 part I mentioned. Now how Lambda comes into picture. we created a event bridge,
Mm-hmm.
and that event bridge will trigger the lambda, and this lambda will and the event bridge will pass based on the date. If it is a Sunday, then it will pass that pass a parameter called weekly, and if it is not if it is not Sunday, then it will pass a parameter called weekly daily. So this lambda will catch the event, and it will say that if it is a daily job, then it will call this trigger this glue job, and it will pass a value called daily. And in the glue job, we will check that what are the arguments being passed. If the argument is daily, then execute the daily part, else execute the weekly part. This is how we integrated all this three.
Okay, perfect. So basically, you are parameterizing it and you leveraging Lambda functions to execute it. Okay, let's say, how will you, like, what all tools you use to orchestrate the weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly jobs?
Okay, if you come into orchestration, so basically we did not have any specific tool for that, but yeah, CloudWatch was used to check all those stuff. CloudWatch was one of the part, and the other part was basically we had created again shell scripts for that. So whenever we were running a job in EMR, we used to create logs. I mean, Spark Summit we used to do, and we used to write those logs in S3. I mean, we had created shell script for that. So whenever any jobs used to fail, in there was this exception used to get triggered, and uh, lambda was triggered. Exception got triggered, and this exception used to invoke the lambda function, which used to send mails that this job has failed, and we used to go and check the logs that was created. So that was one of the part we used to orchestrate or monitor the jobs, but there was no specific tool for that. I mean, if you are looking for airflow or something, we were not using that.
Okay, so you've not worked with Airflow?
No, not specifically. I have not worked on airflow.
Okay, no worries. You mentioned you worked on shell scripts, right?
Yes, yes.
So now I give you a scenario. Now tell me how will you go about preparing the shell script? So I have three environment. One is my dev environment, another is SIT environment, and the third is suppose the production environment. So how will you make sure that you will execute this particular shell script depending upon the environment? You want to change some parameter, as you mentioned before. Depending upon the environment, you want to change some parameter and then execute or orchestrate of the job. So how will you go about designing the shell script?
Okay. Let me understand. Like this shell script is like, I mean, how would I say? There will be one shell script, and this shell script will be executed based on the environment. If the environment is prod, then these are the configurations, and if the environment is SIT or development, these are the configurations, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, what I have seen, I mean, I don't know how do we figure out what is the environment or something, but if there is an indicator to know, whatever is the environment, if there is a function to know, like uh, let me tell one thing, like suppose we have done a Spark summit. Okay, so whenever we do a Spark summit, there's this thing called app name. In the app name, we have mentioned, right, if we are deploying it in prod or development, we can pass the value as dev underscore something. Now let's say our shell script is running, and what we can do is we usually do a yarn top or something to fetch the let's say the running application. So if there's a function to get the current environment, we can fetch the current environment name and maybe apply AWK function on that, or do a grep to get whatever is the uh, value to find out which environment is it. And we can apply a if condition on that. If the environment is something, then the parameters will be this. I mean, this is the approach that I can think of. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can make up use of some kind of config file in before and read and then.
Yeah. I mean, this was the approach that we used there, but I did not think, I mean, it will work over here. But yeah, config file is obviously we can use that. I mean, that is what we were using in our organization as well. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Do you know some things about data warehousing concepts?
Yeah, something I mean, a
Yeah.
little bit I'm aware, but
Okay.
not that confident on that.
So Okay. What are SCD type 2
Okay,
tables?
SCD, yeah, SCD type 1, SCD type 2 is row. Okay, so let's say if we want to keep the historical data of
Mm-hmm.
any entry, then we can use SCD type 2, and it is basically adding new and new rows for that particular entry and maintaining a time based thing or something which will tell that this record was valid from this time to this time, and there's a new entry for that particular record which will tell that it is valid from the this time to, and if it is a current record, the valid from will be some date and valid to will be, let's say, very large date, let's say 9999. So that is what we can say. Basically it is new rows getting added for the same entry, just to show that the historical, we can say the historical part, to keep a
Okay.
representation of the, yeah.
I give you a scenario. Suppose you are working for an e-commerce company and your task is to identify the customers based on a particular city we have ordered the products from, and you're preparing some kind of dashboard on top of it, and as a data engineer you have been asked to prepare a table structure which will give this information. Now the challenge is, like, suppose I am the customer. Today I am living in one city, maybe Bangalore, and next month I move to Mumbai,
Okay.
and third month I move to some other city. So my basically the address keeps on changing, and at the end you have to write a query to fetch the details of the city from where I have ordered the products. So what type of table you will design to, get this output, correct output?
Okay. So let's say you just want me to focus on how the customer table will be designed, is it?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so as you mentioned just before that, so I can use SCD type of SCD type 2 table,
Mm-hmm.
in which the one key will be customer ID, maybe the
Okay.
second, and that we can consider as primary key, and the second will be not primary key, obviously it is going to repeat. So let's say customer ID will be one column, second column will be city, third column will be, as I mentioned, valid from, or and the fourth column will be valid to. So now let's say the customer has newly enrolled into the application or registered into the application. What we can do is the first entry will come and the valid from will start for today's date, and
Mm-hmm.
valid to we can write it as 9999, the year
Okay.
number. Now
Future date.
he updated it. For
Mm-hmm.
that, what we can do is we can, this upsert thing is there. We will update the existing row as the valid to will become as today's date since he updated the record today, and we will insert a new row in which valid from will become today's date and valid to will be 9999. So
Okay.
now whenever you mentioned that what is the product, so from the product table obviously we will get the date on which date he has ordered, and we want to find out that from which city he ordered. So what we can do is we will apply a filter on which the customer ID is this, and valid from, or we can say that ordered date is greater than equal to valid from and less than equal to valid to. If we apply that, then it will lie between the range.
Yeah, and also in your table, you need to insert one surrogate key as well, right? To be able to uniquely identify
Yes,
the records.
yes,
Okay, okay, perfect. And maybe you can put some active flag as well in one of the columns so that you can mark that, okay, why is this is the particular current record which you can identify.
yes.
Okay, perfect. And you know some things about what are star schema or snowflake schema?
I mean, I know, but I'm not confident on that. Again, like star schema, I would say it is very denormalized kind of thing, and snowflake is very normalized. And if we want to, let's say, if there is a heavy read, so we can use maybe, no, I'm not confident on that.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I think it's more over towards denormalizing, and you can
Yeah.
read about it and get more idea. It's like while designing the data models, we need to take care about all these things so that when you are transforming and storing the data back, you can leverage these models to present in a exact way.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was very nice interacting with you, Abhishek. It was a nice experience talking to you. And I wish you all the best for your future interviews and good luck.
Thanks a lot, Swapnil. It was very nice talking to you as well. I mean, I got to learn a few things that I'm not aware of as well. So yeah, I will
Mm.
look into those as well. So thanks a lot. For that.
Nice.
So yeah, Swapnil, you had mentioned about the feedback. So yeah, I mean, I'm really open to that. I mean, what I should focus on and
I think I really like that you are very good in the SQL approaches, and you were able to, on the fly generate some good approaches and tell me. And also, I think you are good with the way of your giving answers is really nice. And if I'm interviewing you in a real life scenario, I would really like your whole overall attitude and the response, the way you have given. And definitely you need to like as a more constructive way, I would say, you can focus more on other important tools. So right now, like with your current experience, I understand that you have not worked with a lot of different kind of projects, but Kafka, you have mentioned you have worked on it. So definitely maybe put in more study onto it. But yes, it is more real life. Uh, in real life, more of a generic ETL is also used. So maybe do your own, some couple of small basic projects on this
okay,
that will give you more idea about how. And yeah, I think those, and AWS is really nice, and you can focus more on, basically in scenario-based questions you will get on AWS, like the glue and all those topics, and how will you handle the scenario. And in Kafka, if you want like lags and different
okay,
troubleshooting things, you need to, you can put in more so
okay,
that you know. But yeah, overall, I think with your experience, you are doing great, and definitely you should be able to crack most of the interviews. Yeah, and
thanks.
we did not touch base on the Python or the programming
Hmm.
stuff, but yeah, maybe you can focus on that as well.
Sure,
Not
sure,
much, but easy or medium based questions would do.
sure. We'll
Okay.
take care of all those things, Swapnil.
Mm.